All right, I think we are ready to open up the May 10th edition of the Medfield Board of Selectmen meeting. A couple points. The meeting will be held in a hybrid format. The Board of Selectmen will attend in person, and members of the public may attend in person, and several are here. In addition, members of the public who wish to participate via Zoom may do so by joining by one of the following options. And if you go on to the town website and call down the agenda for tonight's meeting, you'll have both the link for Zoom and also dial-in information, if anybody needs that, along with a link to the meeting packet information, which is mercifully short this week. It's something like 35 pages, rather than the normal 175. 39 pages. Oh, you're counting the transfers.
I'm looking right at it.
Okay. That's because the transfers got added in after I had downloaded mine. So just a point, this meeting is video recorded, and it will be broadcast on Medfield TV. As we start here, we'd like to take a minute to appreciation for our troops serving across the globe. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to suggest maybe we go straight to Andrew here. So unless you want to stay for a while and hear lots of conversations on lots of things, we're going to suggest to go first with the first action that we have, which is to appoint Andrew Foster as our new town accountant. Does he have to give a speech or anything? Or do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thanks for the opportunity.
Okay, all right, good enough.
We appreciate having you.
Yes,
So thanks for doing
absolutely,
it.
absolutely. For those who may or may not know, Joy Rescheduling will be retiring as the town accountant. So Andrew's been working in our accounting office for 3 years. I was trying to think. I knew it was at least 2, but time flies when you're having fun. So it's always longer than it seems.
That's COVID, Gus.
Huh?
That's COVID that makes you not notice.
And anyway, so I guess we just need unless anybody has any comments, motion.
Motion to appoint Andrew Foster as the town accountant.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye. Excellent.
Welcome, Andrew. We could have done that as a public hearing just to make sure everybody in the room thought it was a good idea too. That's great. We're delighted that you were here, ready to step in, and wish you all the best in your new position. Okay. All right. With that, we will go to DPW Director Maurice Goulet to discuss water restrictions due to repairs at well number 6.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. I just wanted to talk a little bit about our issue at well 6. Well 6 is our main producing well in town out of the 5 wells that we have. It's located on Route 27 as you head out to Sherburne. And what happened was that the pump motor itself had an electrical issue and burnt out the motor. So with that being said, we had to pull the pump and the motor. It's connected together. We pulled that out. They assessed it. We had to get a new motor. At first it was a 4 to 8 week lead time to get that replaced and repaired. We changed to one big unit that is comparable to this. That's a 2 to 4 week lead time, so that we're doing the best we can to try to get that replaced. With that being said, we had to coordinate with the Water and Sewer Board and the Select Board to put a water restriction in. It's a Tier 4 water restriction, and that includes no watering at all except for handheld hose watering at this time. We're trying to get everything done within 2 to 4 weeks, but with COVID, anything's, lead times change, and we do apologize for that. We're doing the best we can. With the remaining wells that we are using to supplement the water, the issue is keeping the 2 storage tanks full that we have in town, one at the Medfield State Hospital and one off of East Mountain Road in Mount Nebo. If you don't have the proper level in those tanks, the pressure goes down, you don't have fire suppression, you don't have drinking water for the residents. So that's why we do these restrictions. It's not that we're trying to punish anybody with a new lawn or anything like that, but it's important that the residents understand that we're trying to get it back online as fast as we can, and as soon as that happens, we'll change the restriction to whatever is necessary at the time. So But so that's what's going on with well 6. So the pump and motor, like I said, is it's an expensive replacement. It's going to cost about. It was going to cost about $90,000. With the new pump and motor, it's down to $70,000 for installation right now.
So how I personally have seen and patch the highlight to let the citizens know we're in Tier 4. Since this is an odd time of the year to be in Tier 4, most people would think Tier 4, July, August, when we're in a dry season.
Right.
So what I'm seeing, and I think it's pure innocence around town, is people do have their irrigation systems on because they're not thinking that we're in drought mode, which I think Tier 4 is about as high as.
Tier 5 is the highest.
okay.
That's no watering whatsoever. But
Okay.
Tier 4 is handheld hose only. But with these, the usage right now is the same as it was before the restriction went in place, which means that, like you said, not many people are understanding that we're in it. Usually in this time of year, we do have some sort of water restriction. It's usually conducted through a stream flow at the Charles River. When you hit drought season, that begins it, but it's usually an odd even restriction. Now, we had to be a little more severe because of the tank levels. Right now, our pumping stations are running 15 hours a day, and that's normal for our pumping stations. Anything more than that, we try not to get to that point. So we're in good shape right now, but we ask the residents to comply with that just for those few weeks that we're asking, and then hopefully we get back to normal.
Are we posting up at the highway with the transfer station?
Transfer station has that on their signboard, so tomorrow when the transfer station open, all the people will see that.
Okay.
Do we have any other way of getting the word out to people?
Social media, it's on the website.
So I made the decision to not do a reverse 911 at this time. I didn't want anybody to lose a drinking water
Sure.
emergency. What we talked about is, and I didn't anticipate it being 80 degrees this weekend, but we wanted to see how effective our communication strategy was to everybody to see if those levels dropped people using it, and if it continues or goes up, especially after this weekend in the heat, then we will utilize that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more quick, just, can we do like sandwich boards or something so people going through town, because I can tell you, my neighbor had it on, he's like, I had no idea, because
Right.
if we're relying on patch and some of the social media, people may not even think.
We have the restrictions on every entrance to town.
Right,
So we have those signs there. We were going to purchase each tier 4 sandwich board for the center of town, but we haven't done that yet.
okay. I think after this weekend, we might have to consider that.
I think so. It's gonna be 84.
Also, I want to make one point, with the new water treatment plant that we're building right now, the activation of that well, the new well that's going to be provided for that, will be in February of 2023. The whole idea of having that new water treatment plant with the new well is to have redundancy in our system. And so something like this would not be a problem once that is completed. We'd have enough capacity in all the different wells to handle that.
Cool.
So,
Thank you.
okay.
Question, Pete?
No, that's it for me.
The question I was about to ask was whether we had the normal signs we put up out, but
Yes.
you answered it before I could ask it, so that was.
I have nothing highlighted for you today, though.
We need some hand signals back and forth.
So, only because you've challenged me.
I know. He's out to get me, I know.
No, you made, just for people that are listening, if I read the restrictions right, the exceptions to the restrictions, people who have a new lawn can still.
We are trying to be, understanding of, especially when this is all of a sudden.
Right.
New lawns, we want them to survive, we do, but, if it's excessive watering, we need to try to conserve as much as we can.
Okay.
I'm sorry, say that again. You're allowing people to water new lawns?
Correct.
Okay. I wanted people to understand that.
Just, as long as it's not overly utilized.
Yep, okay.
I guess one thing I think we might be interested in knowing, if you've put it out so far and you've seen no drop in usage, you don't have to come in or anything, but it'd be just interesting for us to kind of know on maybe a weekly basis or something.
What we're at.
Just so we know whether getting the word out, whether since you're getting the word out, or issue of getting cooperation, but,
So it could be good that it's just the normal usage, because it could be increasing, especially at this time of year when things are starting to dry now and people are getting the new lawns in and they're irrigating their lawns right now.
okay.
So,
Thank you, Bob.
okay, thank you very much.
Very good.
Good night.
Night.
Let's see. Next, Abby Marble, Kelly Fallon, and Kirsten Polar to discuss the proposed renovation, and everyone else that came with you, to discuss the proposed renovation of the playground at Hinckley Park. So whoever would like to talk, the podium is yours.
We do, so we have some slides.
Yeah, I have them here.
Oh, good. Why don't you present? Okay, perfect. All right, that works. You guys want, I'll go sit down while you guys present. No, stay, you too, that's fine. It's, we're not gonna take that long, this is a team sport. Very much a team sport. All right, are we good to go? Do we wanna do quick introductions? I'm Kelly Fallon. I'm Ashley LeDuc. Alex May Reporter. Adrian Mandigo. Abby Mark. Thank you all very much for having us today. We're very excited to be here. So we have a couple slides to walk through with you just to share a little bit more on the project, and then we have a couple questions just to clarify process with you all. So who's doing the slides? If you want to click to the next one. So first and foremost, who are we? We are the Hinckley Helpers. We have a group now of, I think, almost 30 volunteers that are helping us hopefully raise funds to rebuild the Hinckley Playground. Some of the main drivers are making sure that this is a fully inclusive space. I think we all know that the playground today is, pretty old. It was built, I think, almost 25 years ago. So making sure that we're making the proper updates. Thank you. So the current playground is definitely underutilized. When I first moved to town, I was really surprised to see how old the structure is, some of the damage that there is. So I know, Pete, we've talked about this, but there's holes in some of the structures. The sandbox has exposed nails in certain areas. I think I've met with Kevin many times, and I think the Parks and Rec department is doing everything they can to maintain a very old structure. It's just old. A lot of kids have played on it, and it's in need of repair. Some things that were also drivers for us is, when both Ashley and I moved, I think around the same time, and I think we both heard from a lot of people that they go to neighboring playgrounds. And why do they go to the neighboring playgrounds? Well, their structures are a lot better. They're fully inclusive. Maybe they have better ground covering, so they're easier to get around with strollers if they have young kids or children with different abilities. But also when they go to those playgrounds, they go to the restaurants in those towns. They go to the grocery store in that town or stop at a coffee shop. So we're literally pulling community members outside of Medfield and not hitting that demographic of people that have young children by not having a more updated playground.
So why now? I was thinking about this slide and I thought about Kelly and I, between us, there's only a handful of houses and there are 20 children under 5 years old. There are so many new families moving to Medfield because of its excellent educational system. We know that you're investing in the schools. We know that you're investing in Medfield State Hospital and you're making it a regional destination to come to. So we know that people will be coming here and we want them to stay here. We want them to come and enjoy the playground, enjoy Hinckley Park, to go and get a slice downtown at Medfield House of Pizza. And we know that other parents in, say, Sherburne, where we go to take our kids, or Medway, would also come here. Should we build kind of a regional playground destination as well? So we want to retain our community, we want to build our community, and we want to bring in some of our neighbors. Next slide, please. So with that, what does a playground look like? Today, about 26 years from when the original playground was built, a lot has changed, right? We've gone from Discman to like iPads and iPods and all the things, right? Technology's changed, playgrounds have changed. Today, it's very important that ground cover be universally accessible, meaning that if you're a child of all certain abilities, you're crawling, you're walking, you're running, you can kind of go all over the playground. Same with, our grandparents, they wouldn't be able to necessarily come and watch their grandchildren at the playground because of all the wood chips and kind of the terrain. So a big driver of cost, which playgrounds can cost up to $500,000 or more. We've received comps from various playground vendors in the area, and that is kind of the sweet spot of cost for a really great playground. That the driver of the cost is the equipment and the ground cover. Equipment has gone up about 20% over the past year just because of costs associated with COVID, and they don't foresee that that cost will come down in the near future. So in addition to the playground structures, you know, we want to keep the green space. Everyone loves the trees, everyone loves the terrain. You know, that's very important to the community. We also want it to be a place where people are invited to, you know, have parties, have picnics. There's not enough seating for everyone to enjoy the park as it is. So if you're looking at a rendering like we have here from O'Brien and Sons, you know, this is what the potential of the park could look like, and we want to show that. Please jump in. I know other people have done playground equipment research here.
Yeah, so Adrienne did a great job. She actually went through booklets and went to multiple playgrounds to get ideas of what different structures could look like. And we put a list together of, I think, 100 different items and narrowed it down. So we've put a lot of effort into determining what the structures could be and what people like. We've done a survey in town. So we're really trying to gather input and advice from people and they want to see. This is an idea of what it could look like. We want people when they're donating to say, wow, this is the transformation that my money could go towards, but we understand that there's town processes, that the project will likely have to go to bid, and we may not be able to go with this particular vendor. So that vendor is aware that we are just working with them to get initial designs. We've also reached out to, I think we're up to 3 or 4 other playground companies to get like designs that as we're fundraising, we could say, here's the 3 or 4 different options of what the playground could look like. The other thing that's important to note is our goal, our fundraising goal is $500,000. One thing that we've talked a lot about is what if in the course of the couple of years we don't get to the $500,000? We've thought a lot about maybe we do a scaled approach. Maybe we don't get every structure in our design, but we need a new playground. This is the ideal, but a lot of it's going to be dependent on funding and how much money we have. What we would like is to have a playground that is comparable with the other playgrounds in neighboring towns. And for us to get that in Medfield, we need about $500,000.
So with that, we just launched Hinckley Helpers, an initiative of the Medfield Foundation, which we're so happy to be a part of. And we're raising public awareness now. And we plan to do that throughout the year with various events. We have our kickoff event this weekend. You're all invited. We'd love to have you. And we'll have, you know, our team is very adept at social media. We are pushing it very hard. And, you know, once we kind of have that groundswell of community support and awareness, we'll also be seeking corporate donors. We'll seek grants and, you know, key moments in time like Giving Tuesday where we think we could raise more money. So that's what we see for this year. We hope by next year, this time, that we've raised enough funds to really start working towards rebuilding and planning. And we're hoping, you know, one of our questions is, what is the process? What is the process with the town, and what is that timeline?
First, I'd like to jump in. Is that
Oh,
okay?
yeah, please.
So I think you're all aware of the Medfield Foundation and what we do. We raise private money for public good here in town. We've raised money for a number of capital projects. And really, besides learning the process, which I think is going to be an evolution for all of us.
Abby, can I just interrupt? You need to use a microphone so
Oh,
that
I'm
the
sorry.
people that are watching on TV can hear you.
I'm sorry.
What you're saying is so important that.
Okay, thank you. So anyway, we raise private money for public good, and this is exactly the model that we use for many, many projects here in town. We've adopted them, or they've adopted us. I'm not sure how you really call it, but the main reason we're here tonight is this is a lot of money to raise, and it's a lot of effort for this group here. And I just want to be assured, and Kevin has assured us for his part, that if we raise the money, can you assure us that we can build a playground? Mainly because if we raise the money and for some reason you tell us the playground cannot be built, we will we're under obligation really to give the money back. And that, I really, before we even get started, I want to make sure that everybody's on board.
Did you have a question? So, I'm gonna ask a question, because
Go
I
ahead.
had a chance to meet with Kelly before I was elected, and one of the things, she brought this up, and so my concern would be, because it's Hinckley, the Stephen Hinckley swim pond, would anything preclude them from doing what they're doing structurally there? Is there any, I got you, is anything that was donated?
Not that I know of.
We're working very
Yeah.
closely with Kevin. He is along every step of the way. He's involved in the design. He's involved with, whatever, good neighborly things need to be done, whether a fence needs to be put in or, sound protect, I don't even know. But he's our man.
So when I had, and I believe Kelly and you and I spoke via email, so it's nice to meet you in person. So one of the first things I had said was that you really needed to go to Parks and Recreation because they have care, custody, and control of the swim pond. So citing that would be under their auspices. My only concern on your behalf is that if you didn't raise the money and we needed to go to town meeting for additional funds, I can't guarantee you that town meeting will vote to do that. So that's
We know
only
that. We
the,
know
yeah,
that.
but that was my only caveat, that if we needed to go to town meeting to finish the project or do something like that, I couldn't guarantee the funding for that.
But you brought, I'm happy to hear that if they get close to the finish line, and they're basically taking private money to a town property, that if we needed to, that is an option down the road to close it out.
It
That,
is-
again, no guarantees, but
No,
it's something.
It is
okay.
an option, and Nick and I have been speaking about this, actually even before Hinckley Helpers came about, when we were looking at our ARPA funding, whether or not, because Kevin's been talking about this playground to us in the capital budget for I won't even tell you how long, but a really long time. And so when we got the ARPA funding, we talked about whether or not this would be a project that would be community-based and beneficial to our downtown. I've made a call into Norfolk County, who controls some of the ARPA money we've received, to find out if this would even be an eligible project. I haven't heard back from that yet. And I know we haven't made any final decisions, and it's not on your agenda till June to talk about ARPA, but I'm kind of planting the seed as well that may be an option.
Good.
If we don't see the fundraising go all the way.
Great, thank you.
Great,
Wonderful. Thank
great.
you.
Yeah, I will speak up and not be the least bit shy. I'm behind this 110%. I look to you young ladies, and I admire what you're doing. I think what you're doing is so important to build community in this town. And I've said this I know I've said it to you, Alex, I've said it to you, Kelly, I said it to Kirsten the other night, that it is so important that the town supports these young folks coming into town. I want to be looking at you 20 years from now, and you've worked on all these different projects, you've endeared yourself to Medfield, and I just think it's wonderful. So, you have my number if you need anything, because then I go right to her.
We have lots of boards and committees when you're done with this.
No, but so it's great. I think it's fantastic. And you'll definitely see me on Sunday, and I have the chairs for you, so.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So should we come back to you about
I
the
don't
process
think
at
they've
some
finished
point,
their
or-
discussion
Oh,
yet.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I too think this is a wonderful idea, a great project, and thank you guys for undertaking it. It's much appreciated. I know that I had raised the concept with Kelly of naming opportunities, because that's oftentimes the way that money is raised. And so I guess the question that I would ask is if somebody wants to make a donation, is the town willing to allow naming rights? It could be the Pete Peterson playground at the Stephen Hinckley Park or something
Is that an offer, Pete?
like that, or
This is being recorded.
maybe a little
being
rubber
recorded?
block would be the Pete rubber block. That's more in line with.
If it's the Pete Peterson playground, I'm guessing you could make it bigger than you currently.
So, but that's one thing that occurred to me, that typically I've always mentioned this to the schools. I mean, there's a big opportunity for them to use it as a way to raise monies for, every classroom could have a name on it, basically, like the hospitals do. So, to me, that's okay. That doesn't bother me, so. But I think that's gonna be something that they're gonna need to know about.
That'll be a nice problem to have.
Have people approach you to donate certain equipment and have it named after a grandparent or whatever, that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, we have been approached already about naming opportunities for things like benches or bricks. We have not vocalized naming opportunities for the overall playground because we obviously know that we would need approval to do something like that.
Or the slide, or the, you know, the
Yeah.
whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, no, Pete, the whole playground.
One other thing that's important to mention is, okay, sorry.
Switch with me.
I know when Hinckley was built, there were a number of donors, and there are naming bricks there. And one point that Kevin made, which I thought was excellent, is let's make sure we preserve those. Like, those were original donors.
Absolutely.
Let's think about how we landscape those back in. So I just wanted to mention that. Like, I know that's important. As far as like the naming of the playground, like, Pete, I thought that was an awesome idea. If that's possible, I think that's how we'd get a major donor. I just don't know if that's something we're allowed to do.
We'll talk to Mark Sorrell about the logistics on that.
A couple questions. First, the playground is going where the current playground is, so we're not
Correct.
talking about making new land available. It's going right there.
Yes.
It has the support of, I would expect it would have the support of Parks and Rec for sure, so that sounds
Yep.
right. And I actually think from the naming bricks, if there's a way to do it where you preserve the ones that are there, but have the opportunity for expansion of that, I would
Yes.
think that would be almost a no-brainer in terms of an easy way to,
Yep.
to raise things. So on this board, I'm probably the hard-nosed guy when it comes to finances. So the only caution, and so far, 2 people have said, well, if you can't get there, you know, we can go to the town. And I'm gonna say, don't count on that.
Yep.
That shouldn't be the way to think about that. However, if there are ARPA grant opportunities that we can go chase after in the next year, you know, in the near future, absolutely, let's go after that stuff. So
Yeah.
the basic idea, I'm totally on board. Kelly, we talked
Yeah.
on Friday about that, and you know,
We'll go skiing
I have
and
some
talk
people
about
that, yeah, I know some people that, yeah, if you hadn't done that, we might not have talked.
Free seating.
Yeah, but you know, I have somebody that talks to me regularly that's very sensitive to these kinds of things because of who she deals with
Yes,
in her
yes.
job. So my view would be if there's any kind of grants we can get, we should absolutely be prepared to do that. I wouldn't count on, you know, I'm just saying, don't say, oh, well, we'll get 80% and the 20% coming from the town. And I say that because it's my job to be the hard-nosed guy, but when we get past the ARPA relief funding, the relatively comfortable budget processes we kind of went through last year, we went through this year, and I'm hoping we'll go through next year. That will suddenly go away, the tide will go out on that, and all of a sudden, I expect in 2 fiscal years, we're going to be having some difficult budget discussions because that little extra boost that's coming in from ARPA is not going to be there. So I'm being a pessimist about how easy it would be to do that for good reason. I'm not worried, but I anticipate FY '24 is not going to be as much fun as, not that FY '23 was fun, but it's not going to be as much fun. The other point that I'd make, and I don't know with playgrounds whether it's an issue, but a couple of years ago, we had donors come in with the turf field for the high school, and it was really great. We got a brand-new turf field. And what we learned.
That was an MFI initiative.
Yeah, and what we learned about that is that it was great that we got the turf field, but from a capital planning standpoint, the long-term maintenance, in the case of a turf field, every 10 years you have to put a new one in. So we got one, and then we hadn't actually realized that we had signed up for a subscription program to renew the turf field. I don't know what the maintenance requirements would be. I'm not necessarily so while I'm saying don't count on the upfront funding, I'm not suggesting the maintenance necessarily falls on a group like yours, but we would, to the extent there is any maintenance, we'd want to know about it so that we can take a realistic look at what the town can absorb. So that's just long-term planning, something I'd be careful of.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Gus. So the current playground has wood chips, so there's actually maintenance that Parks and Rec has to do every year, and for it to be a playground that passes inspection, they need a certain amount of wood chips, so it constantly has to be maintained. The type of flooring that we're proposing doesn't require maintenance, so hopefully we'd actually be looking at taking some of the burden off of Parks and Rec by putting a playground like this together, and maybe that's funding we could look at. Is that something we could transfer towards the playground?
Kevin is available if you want to, he just let me know he's here if you want to.
If
ask
he
him
would
about
like
it.
to, if he has any comments about Parks and Rec's commitment to this or ideas about ways, I mean, one of the things that the town seems to generally have flexibility to do that doesn't come in on a budget is the in-kind support, whether it's DPW or Parks and Rec. This may be more directly a Parks and Rec opportunity or, situation, but, there's two ways you get help from the town. One is through straight money, and the other one is
We will
by
take
avoiding
in-kind.
costs,
We would
that the
love
town
the
has the
DPW.
skills to do it,
Yes.
yeah. So I would
DPW
expect
would be huge.
Do you have them, or is he have?
Kevin's here, yep.
I'm here.
Have you you've been listening to our conversation, Kevin?
Yeah, it's the first time I've heard about this, so I'm a little surprised.
Funny guy.
So it was just that you were listening and you were connected. If there's anything, we're sort of touching on things that Parks and Rec might do or might not have to do or might want to do. If there's any observations you would care to share in this meeting, we'd welcome them.
Sure. So first off, thanks for having me. I would just add that Kelly and I have been meeting for, I would say, close to 14 months now on this project. When she first came to me about what we could do to enhance and bring a new playground to Hinckley. We already maintain the playground. We're there at least twice a week during the spring, and then I am there legitimately every single day of the summer. So we're already on site every day, maintaining and doing the best we can to keep the playground as safe as possible. But as they've mentioned, it's almost 30 years old. I would say it's probably something that Christine and I have mentioned to Christine probably over the last 10 years about my want to do something more there. And we've probably done as much as we humanly possibly can with my staff to keep it as safe and usable as possible. But as with other things under the Park and Rec care, it has seen its longevity of life is about at the end. So this effort that they're putting forth, Kelly and I have talked about how monumentous of a task it will be. But after talking to her, meeting with her group, as I've done several times, I don't have any hesitations that this group could pull it off.
Kevin?
Thank you.
First off, I'm delighted that you're doing this, and we really appreciate it. There's some things in town that do make a big difference, that if the town had to just do it on their own, it would not float up to the top. And certainly Medfield Foundation across the board has done things to help. But, as you were talking and presenting this, my head went to a couple things. One was the Pocket Park that Jean Minio years ago stood up and basically had this idea of what she was going to do. First request for town funding for pretty much the whole thing got shot down. And to her credit, she didn't kind of say, well, then the heck with you, I'll go find another town that wants a pocket park. She basically rejiggered the whole thing, did find, she got companies that were willing to help support that. And she put in something which is a very popular and a definite positive addition to the town. The second thing that came to mind that's more recent is the rail trail that basically wouldn't be there. It's an emerging asset for the town. Happens to be near where I live, so it's of even more significance to me. But again, it was citizens in the town that stepped forward and pushed something ahead. And I guess the most I can say is the town didn't go out of its way to halt anything. And in the rail trail case, we did to a degree at the start around liability issues. So the stuff you're doing is not just, oh, that's nice to have. It's actually really important. And it's the kind of thing that makes the difference between a town that kind of meets the meets the, not minimum's too harsh, but standard, versus a town that has people in it that have the imagination and the initiative to do things that make it better. So I think, I don't know how to answer your question that you had of us exactly, but I'm pretty sure that what I heard from all three of us, and I'm probably the one that you might not have heard it as clearly, so that's why I'm saying it. I think we'll do anything we can to make sure that you're able to do this and get it through successfully.
Thank you.
If there are legal issues that block us, then there's legal issues that block us, but I can't imagine that there would be, at least unless you're.
Not turn Mark's microphone on.
Well, you'll let us know.
Yeah, well, I mean, but if it is.
We're obviously gonna be
yeah.
spending some time together.
Yes. No, we appreciate that. And I think, like, testament to the Medfield Foundation, because a few of the different initiatives you mentioned were through MFI. And I think, you know, we've seen since this group got involved, Kevin and I, we were doing everything we could, the two of us, but it wasn't until we got such a great group of volunteers and partnered with MFI that this has really taken off. So we're really excited about the potential and appreciate your support. We do have questions. We need to know the process once we get the funds. We want to make sure we're diving in on, you know, DPW and any in-kind donations, and I'd love support with grants. It's something I've taken responsibility for, but I have zero experience with, so I'd love some support there. But we're thrilled to have your support.
One last point, speaking more generally about the town. I'm actually happy to see young parents doing this. You know, having been, when I got here, I was a young parent. And understanding it when you have little kids, it's hard to find the time to do, like going to town meetings, things like that. And so there's a segment of the town that's here that has views and has needs, and we don't always hear them that clearly, not because we won't listen, but just because the conversations don't happen. So I'm actually delighted to see that you're taking the initiative on this for that reason, to do something that's going to be important to you and a lot of other people here in town.
Thank you.
Thank you, gals.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank
you
you.
very much. Thanks for your
Okay.
time.
All right, we'll see you on Sunday.
Great.
Oh, yeah, the
Sandwich board.
the sandwich
Sandwich boards.
Oh.
Yeah, oh
So that they
yeah,
can go back
that's
home
the
to their
back.
kids.
No.
Yeah.
That's, I think that was on the,
That's on the consent
is that the
calendar.
consent
Yeah, you're all
calendar?
set.
So
Yeah.
All the
Oh,
way.
yeah, I
Mr.
forgot. That was at the
Chairman?
very end.
Yeah.
Oh, I think
Mr. Chairman,
Uh-oh, yes, Mr. Sorrell.
I thought they muted you.
I'll actually interject something positive, which is that playground equipment is on the state bid list, so there's actually potential for a simplified process once you decide what it is you want to do.
Thank you.
You know, there's no Medway voters in this town, in this room right now. Right? This is good, just legitimate legal advice. Sure, yeah, we want to do it, we can do it, just while you're
We can do
here,
one,
just so you
yes,
can hear firsthand. So you're on the consent calendar for the signs, but because you're here, we'll deal with that. So can I get a motion?
I would move to allow the Hinckley Helpers to post signs at the usual locations to advertise their kickoff event on May 15 at Hinckley Playground from 11 a.m. to 2:30 p.m.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye.
Okay, we took
Thank
care of that too.
you.
Thank you so much.
Good
Thank
luck,
you,
guys.
everyone. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Good night, thanks for coming.
You guys did great.
Yay. Okay, oh, good, because I can bring them over Sunday.
Good night. Good night.
Yeah, no problem, I can toss them in. All right, thank you guys.
All right. Let's see, third item, Medfield Energy Committee to discuss electrical vehicle charging stations and a potential vote to approve the Eversource electric vehicle charger site host agreement. Fred Davis, I think, is the lead speaker.
I'll lead, exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Select Board. This is the first time I'm appearing before you since Eileen has started, so I'll just make a sentence or two introductory remarks about the Energy Committee. I just want to remind you that we're here to advise the town on anything related to energy, and these days on energy or carbon, and that's a lot. And we do have a very active group, 14 people, and we have 8 different work groups that are active at this point. So we're involved in and here to advise on a whole range of activities. So we're happy to be here tonight to give you what advice there is to be given about EV charging. I will say one more thing generally, though, that we've been tallying up the energy projects that we've been responsible for over the 14 years since 2008, when the Energy Committee started, and nobody's tallied this up before, so it's a little bit of an effort to compile them all. But so far, we've tallied up about $9.2 million worth of benefit, just flat dollars, to the town. cumulative.
That's up from the 8 million you had in your annual report last night. This is-
Exactly, exactly. Thank you for noticing that, Gus. That's terrific.
The numbers guy.
Yeah, so we're going to keep adding to that. Very exciting that Susan McPhee, who's going to give you the presentation in a moment, is assembling another batch of Green Communities projects. And the incentives, we were just talking about this today, the incentives for heat pump projects, the dollar amounts are brand new for Mass Save just in the last month or so that are coming through on the commercial side. Anyway, they're very high. So I'm very excited that we might be, that I hope we'll be coming to you with presentations, proposals for heat pumps in the coming months. So we're going to grow that number either which way on the new side, and we're also still digging up the old projects to put on that tally. So the question of electric vehicle charging is before you tonight. It was before you a couple of weeks ago, and I really appreciate that Nick has been trying to move this along. This is a long-term process it's a confluence of opportunity coming through to us through Green Communities funding and Eversource funding, and putting those two together and getting them coordinated is quite a process. So thanks to Nick for all that work over all this time, and it's going to go on for quite a while longer from here. So, and I noticed, I did look at the recording of your meeting 2 weeks ago, and I at first I was, when I heard that you had a 40-minute discussion on this, I said, oh, why didn't they call us? And then after I saw the recording, I said, you know what, maybe just as well, because in the end, I've seen so many conversations about EV charging. You always have to learn this stuff. It's a learning curve. And I'm commending you. You may not realize it, but you went through most of the arc of what needs to be talked about for EV charging. There's some misconceptions. There's some things that are not intuitive that we'll bring to your attention tonight, hopefully. So I'm going to shut up in a moment by introducing Susan McPhee, who's an amazing resource that we have here working for the town. She's going to give you the major presentation, and then following that, Jim Redden, our transportation work group coordinator for the Energy Committee, will be synthesizing what Susan presents into a proposal for you if you want to take it. But just one more time, what Nick has been doing is just trying to further the specific, very finite question of can we approve the Eversource, can we go ahead with the site for the Eversource Make Ready? That's the specific thing that needs your approval tonight. All the rest, policy, which I'm generalizing as policy questions, it's all good, and it's all stuff that you'll want to and to have gotten to eventually. And if you want to get to it tonight or in the next meetings, that's fine too. But I'm hoping you can still move ahead, and hopefully we're going to present it in a way that makes it easy to say yes to the proposal in front of you. Okay, and is Susan here and ready to go?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
There.
Yeah, there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Great. I have just a couple of PowerPoint slides. So Nick, do you want to share them from there, or would you like me to share them from here?
I can pull them up if that's easier.
That would be great. So just to set the table for this conversation, I appreciate that you've had an extensive conversation, as Fred mentioned, and I thought I would focus on two different things this evening. Number one is the cost of getting a site ready to go. And the second is the pricing of how we can look at charging for electricity or not. But to set the scene, as you know, Medfield received a Green Communities grant. One of the items that's been funded are electric vehicle charging stations. So in tandem with the charging stations, which is the equipment, so this would pay for the equipment, is how do we get the sites ready? So Eversource has a program called Make Ready, and we are very fortunate to be in the queue for Make Ready, and that's the agreement that's in front of you tonight. So Nick, if you can pull up the slide that is talks about hardware and site costs. The Make Ready program is designed to do all of the, I think it's the third slide. The Make Ready program is designed to provide all of the site work, which is the most expensive work, believe it or not. So it's putting in transformer, trenching, running conduit, putting in a cement pad, putting in the bollards to prevent cars from hitting the equipment, and then stubbing out the electrical service. So all of the service, basically making, that's why it's called Make Ready, they make the whole site ready. So some of the sites that they're getting ready around the state are, up to $100,000 or more. So this is really the most expensive portion. And we're very fortunate to have this opportunity. I think right now Medfield is one of the only communities that has money in the queue. The DPU is all the utilities have filed. They've run out of money and they've filed for the next round of funding, which they're hoping to hear back in the summer. So it's great that we have this opportunity. We're very fortunate, and that's why we're encouraging moving forward. The other costs for the town at the site are the hardware. So Eversource does the Make Ready, and then putting in the post, if you will, and then the charger is what the grant money from Green Communities would pay for. So the town would choose a vendor and a type of technology that they want to use. So that is a variable price, as you can see on the second line there. How much does it cost? That would be up to the town to decide what resource. We have grant money for $7,500 per site. There are 3 sites in town that have been approved for Make Ready and for the Green Communities grant. The one that we're talking about tonight is we're calling it the town hall site. It's the Jane Street. And so the charger itself will cost in the neighborhood of $7,500, and installation, depending on the vendor, is most likely the responsibility of the town, but it can also be many towns, the town electrician can handle the installation. So it really depends on who Voltrek is. You can see the name Voltrek. They represent a lot of different charging brands. So that's one way that we could go. And often town electricians can take a course and do the installation, or you can, pay somebody else to come in. Then if we can take a look at the pricing slide. So once we make the site ready, so the other 2 sites are school sites, I should be clear, which are the Wheelock and behind the Blake and the high school. So this is just one site for the town side. And then this slide, I've tried to give you an outline. This is basically a sample of how the costs, based on your previous discussion, what the costs might look like for different options of how to handle either charging drivers for the power, not charging drivers for the power, how much does the power cost, so forth and so on. So what's surprising is that there are so many components of how much it costs to run an EV charger. As you can see down the left-hand margin are all the different components that you need to think about in this process. Then the first column is if we give away the power, there are things that we might not, costs we may not have to incur, such as the credit card processing fees, costs for town hall to handle all those facets of charging for the power, so forth. The next column over is if you only charge for power, then you still need to handle credit cards and so forth. So that adds to the fees. And then if you want to take a look at it as how do we recoup all of the costs for this? So that's what you see marching along in the different columns. So the charge per hour, third line up from the bottom, would be 0 if we don't charge consumers, $4 an hour for power only, and recouping the costs, all the costs, $6 per hour. So again, these are big round numbers. These are estimates. It's based on the most popular charging stations around. If you pull into, different malls or other towns, the kind of chargers that you're going to run into, and just trying to give you a flavor for how you can approach the equation. So for example, there are a lot of assumptions here. One assumption is that each charger might be used for 4 hours a day, 365 days a year. So you could see that might go up on, weekdays, might be less on a Sunday. so forth. So there's a lot of assumptions in here. The service contract second line is about maintenance. The top line is about the networking, the cloud that you would need to have both for the credit card facility, but also for capturing the data and understanding how much juice is being dispensed, and therefore understanding the economics of what's really going on. I'll share one other thought and then pass it along. Because this is a Green Communities project, it takes place within the context of our, we have several different projects that we're doing in the Green Communities grant. And it's my goal that hopefully we could get this rolling so that we could install chargers over this summer. The next Green Communities grant round is in the fall. So it's my goal to hopefully close this grant out over the summer so that then we can reapply for more work in the fall and apply for another $200,000 worth of grant money from DOER, because we've just teed up a whole bunch of really exciting projects that I would love to get along to. But first, we need to spend all the money from this grant. So this project is part of that larger Green Communities effort. So with that, I think James Redden was going to make some comments.
Does anybody have, unless you're still going to be talking about that slide before it goes away, I just want to.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all these slides, but feel free to ask questions anytime.
Well, I was trying to understand there's a charge only, I'm looking at all the numbers in the columns between charge only for power and recoup all costs. They're all the same, except that then they're not. What's the cost?
You could get $6 versus $4. She said that's how you can separate.
No, I understand that, but what's the difference between charge only for power and recoup all costs? What's the other costs that aren't power costs that are you're recouping?
Basically, the service contract for maintenance is, well, the top, from the top down, is the $690.
Yeah.
The $690 is optional in the first column, and first off.
Well, let me try it this way. If the recoup all costs, the bottom, that total collected says $8,765. I haven't done the math here. Is that $8,765? That's the total of all the numbers above it?
Correct.
Okay.
1480 times 6.
Okay, so then the charge only for power leaves $2,925 for the town. And you're saying part of that $2,925 is the service contract?
Yes, I mean, yes.
And
Well,
Yes.
where's the other 2,000?
Under the middle
The
column.
data
the total
acquisition
cost-
plus the service contract, plus the credit card processing and fees. So it's everything other than the electricity. If the
So
town, those
I got it.
costs.
Okay.
So
And again, those are really big estimates. So for example, credit card processing and fees can vary dramatically if you're an Amex customer versus a MasterCard customer, depending on how the town treasurer or accountant processes, so that I just put in, 50 cents per transaction on that.
Okay. That's all.
So,
That's the
okay,
only
yeah,
question.
I have a very short role here.
Sure.
Basically, as a committee, we looked at all these options. There's a lot of data behind all these numbers, and like the charge point numbers are representative of what we feel is available to the town. And likewise, our, give the power away for free is our estimate of what we think will happen if we give it away for free. So as a committee, when we looked at all these options and knowing where we are in the process, we wanted to recommend to the town that we move forward with the no charge for electricity option at this point in time, because it has the least total cost and has least commitments. If we signed up with a company like ChargePoint right now, you'd probably be making a 5-year commitment to it. And in a sense, ChargePoint is one of the many companies out there, so you'd have to go through this whole process. Most of the numbers they're using are sort of hidden from us. They don't say why they're charging us so much for electricity. They're just saying, based on our knowledge, we could know this. So our proposal is that we take this first year, 6 months to a year, put in the equipment where we can do our own recording, let the power be for free, and you can see roughly the cost of what it'll be to the town, and get the data we have about what usage we have in town, and then make a more intelligent decision about whether we want to farm out all the options to different companies as a service, whether we can do it internally into town for less money and make some money, or we decide as a town we should give it away because it's helping all the merchants. But what we really wanted.
What data, what I'm What is the data you would collect with free electricity? What will that data tell you?
It'll tell us how long people hook up, you know, what time of day, how long they stay, how much power they draw.
But what will that tell you?
It'll-
If you have free electricity, it's not really telling you what people would do if they were paying for their fuel. You could have a free fuel pump and see how many, when people come to pump gas too, and I don't know that data would be very useful.
Well, that's true, truthfully.
Other than that people like free stuff.
Well, it might. I mean, and there is a lot of free charging around available from, you know, like certain Teslas still get charged for free. So the electric charge market right now is kind of wide open. So I don't think people even know what they're paying when they pull in to charge up their cars. So I think it would provide information, but obviously it wouldn't provide everything. And it is, we thought about charging $5 or $6, and then when you compare to going across the street at Bank of America, we'd have to be cross-comparing to them every time, and we'd be getting into this, you know, we can do that in the long run, but we kind of felt right now, we didn't want to commit to a company to do that much work, to do the billing and make sure we're collecting all the money. There may or may not be worth the trouble.
I would actually think it would be useful to exercise that full infrastructure to make sure that we know how to do it, so we can make a decision whether we want to get into the fueling business or not. You know, if by making people pay for the full cost of this, we find that they're all going to Bank of America, I don't know if Bank of America's electricity is free or not, but if we know they're going there, then I would say the town should stay out of the fueling business and should look for ways to encourage businesses. If in fact it's attracting people to businesses, then it seems to me private businesses should be putting them in. And if they want to do it for free, that would be great. I'm not seeing the logic in the analysis. This is what I'm saying.
The logic, well, in the future, the town may also want to use the electricity themselves. See, what I'm arguing or suggesting right now is we don't want to make final decisions on how you're going to use that charger for the next 5 years, because you don't really have as much information as you probably want. If you buy a couple electric cars in the next couple of years, you may want to park one overnight here and charge it on your own account. And therefore, all we're suggesting is you put the infrastructure in now to have the charger with the ability to do all these things. We're not saying you can't. You can start charging the first month if you want. We're suggesting you put the data communications in, so that you have that information.
Yeah, total agree. Okay, that I
Right.
totally,
And then
yeah.
in the next month, if you want us to develop a billing system, it would not be hard to do. I mean, but then you'd have to assign someone from the town to do that billing. And as Susan was saying, that would be, it's really, could be pretty complicated, you know, getting people's either credit cards if you put that system in, or finding out who charged and sending a bill for $6, you know.
That's not what we heard in our last discussion. We actually said there's apps that people that do this all the time. It's kind of like when you go, like if you go park in downtown Boston now, you can't even put money in the meter anymore. You have to get the app on your cell phone, and it all gets processed. Now, I understand there'd be a fee to us for the service that does that, but I don't think the billing would be here out of the town. It would be an app it should be
I agree
easy
with
to do that.
That's the middle line. You can do that. I didn't mean to say you couldn't.
Okay.
What I said, you have to commit to that. So if you want to commit to something now for that, we can go forward under those
After
options.
5-year statement, that if you go with Charge Point, they may charge us, it may be a 5-year contract that we'll put this in, but you're at least on the hook for 5 years.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and I just
Okay.
think it's a little early for that.
And that was, the
Jeff.
cost for that service was, what did it say on the slide? It was like $700 a year or something?
That was the service maintenance contract, not the billing.
That's not the billing. The billing was in the same ballpark. What was I don't remember the number, but it was the billing, what was the billing?
We had $1,400, say $1,500.
So we'd be at risk for doing something we'd be spending $7,000 over 5 years if we sign a contract. See, my view is I would much rather get insight into the market reaction of how people will use this. Because on the surface, and I'm not against the idea of us finding this out, so I actually think it's in the right spot. But my reaction would be, I'm not sure why people who live in Medfield would choose to come 2-3 miles down the road from their charger at home to plug into a charger that they pay for here, recognizing that here at the town hall, if you're going over to Avenue for dinner, I get it. If you're coming in here to pay your real estate bill, I don't, because it's you know, it's a 5-minute thing. So I'm genuinely curious to know. It may be that there's town employees that have electric vehicles, and it turns out it's an amenity for the town employees. I don't know. So I would like to know, but I'd like to know I'd like to know the market response, because the logical place here next, if this thing is well received, the next question will be, we need more of them. And then it's like, well, how and where? I'm not even, you know, how should we think about where they should be? But I'd kind of like to know how the market behaves, not a distorted picture of free electricity. That's what I'm getting at. I'd rather spend the $7,000 over 5 years to get the market data that we need. You're absolutely right. Right now, for buying the equipment, my prime concern was to whatever we ordered for what we're ordering would be equipment that was capable of supporting that kind of a thing.
Yes,
So
I think
as a
we're-
practical matter right now, for the decision you're looking for tonight, I think that's fair. That's the only thing I was worried about, is we would buy this is the non-charging stuff. Gee, we should have gotten the other stuff. That's the immediate question.
Yeah, we're in agreement that
Okay.
no matter what, communication should be built into the thing.
Yeah.
There is some idiomatic data that says there's apps where people will look for restaurants in towns that have electric chargers near them, and people will, from out of town, come into the electric charger and charge for the 2 or 3 hours you're talking about, which is someone that's worth the effort, and then eat at Avenue. So this is also part of the economic development of the town.
So we should
But-
talk to Avenue about sitting there doing what Bank of America did.
You can, we're really early in the system here, and we're gonna have all this information, 10 years from now, and we just don't have full research capabilities here, but we're doing the best we can. So we're for moving forward in any manner forward. Most important thing that we gotta reiterate is Eversource has a list of 100 towns that want all this stuff. We're in a good place if we say yes, but we can't keep saying we better wait. Because what we wanna say is move forward with the Eversource piece tonight. You're giving us great instruction. We can come back with a much more, and Susan, I'm sure will agree with this, a much more detailed list of the different suppliers. So it's not just one charge point as this example. We'll give you all the comparisons of them, and then make a decision over the next month as to which one maybe to go forward with as another step. I guess that's what we're saying. We haven't really fully vetted, in my mind, the vendors.
Right. The other question I had on the chart that you showed, that was for a single spot. So we have 3 that are going in, so actually those
Yes,
numbers,
yes,
in terms of the impact on the town, it's triple what that chart shows if
Yes.
we're putting in 3 spots. If we do the same thing in all 3 spots.
Yes, and you don't have to do the same thing in all spots, but it would be the same.
To be clear, the make ready, because the Jane Street site is very finite, there would be initially one pole with 2 heads on it, so a dual charger, and the make ready program would stub out another site for future, but there's no date attached to that. So if it's super popular, you could put it in next year, you could wait 10 years. So it's really waiting for the demand to catch up with the supply. But the make ready program wants to make sure that as long as they're doing all that expensive work with trenching and all so forth, that they're leaving a space for future. Because it's finite, there's only 2 for the Jane Street, but for the schools, they'll be putting in 4 spots and only 1 charger at each of those. So again, it's ready for the future in case it's super popular.
It's a 5-year commitment to keep the charger there to Eversource, back and forth, so.
Okay.
Did you see Jeff's comment?
I didn't know. It's a good thing you're keeping track.
Well, I knew he was gonna have to leave, so he pinged me.
Okay, so we had a comment from Jeff Hyman. I have to leave the meeting, but I want to state that moving forward with the Eversource Make Ready proposal is the right decision for the town, and I urge the Select Board to vote yes to proceed. Adoption of charging infrastructure helps Massachusetts reach its goal of 300,000 registered EVs on mass roads by 2025. Won't argue with that. My arguments all have to do with how much taxpayers are being asked to pay for it.
We're in agreement.
Actually, that's not even my main one. I am genuinely curious about understanding the market response. And so, because if you take this parking lot, for example, the trade-off we have here, we've had parking studies that basically say we don't have enough parking downtown. But what that really means, they don't want to have to walk, say, from the CVS parking lot down to here, or in some cases, I don't want to have to cross 109 to get to Brothers.
Right.
So, the standards for adequate parking can be pretty exacting by some people. But nonetheless, this parking lot is usually full, at least on Board of Selectmen meeting nights. And so I'm sensitive to when you start pulling parking spaces out of general parking, converting them to charging spaces. I recognize that may be the right thing for us to do as more people use EVs, maybe that's the right thing to do, but I'm sensitive to wanting the insight to try to figure out that transition process, if it is one, carefully, so we don't kind of like we don't have a lot of parking spaces to just kind of give away.
No, I
unless
agree.
we have good reason.
And it will be interesting to see how people end up paying for the electricity.
Mhm.
Like I said, it's really pretty much a Wild West right now, but
Right.
there's going to be a lot of standardization in the industry. And
Mhm.
I did actually check on the way over here. If you signed up to buy charging across at the Bank of America,
Mhm.
it's 16 cents a minute, which is $9.60 an hour. That's up to 50 kW. And then they have a 150 kW charger over there, they say. It's like, it's double that, so it's like $18 an hour.
Yeah, I don't, and to be clear, if we charge for this, I don't want us to be trying to make money on it. I just want the straight, pure cost. It's not, so we can undercut Bank of America to get them to come to our.
No, but I mean, it's
charges.
going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
They also say if you're a member, you may get a totally different price.
Ah.
So, I mean, everything is rolling, so.
It will do if you're up to date on all your
And there
real
will-
estate taxes and water and sewer bills.
Hey, early.
Dog licenses, yeah.
But you're right, there will be parking apps, charging apps, and there are a bunch of them.
So-
That's what,
So I apologize, I just dominated this whole thing.
No, no,
We'll
no, no.
start.
Well, just to give you a nugget, when we had this conversation before, you were saying like, I don't even know how many Teslas are in town. So Christine reached out and, what we know from just an EV plate standpoint, there's 117
Mhm.
registered, and then but you may, I think my neighbor Jeff has an EV, which you could own a Tesla or a Volt or a Purus and not have the EV plate. So there's still wiggle room, we could have more cars, because you're paying more for the plate. I think it's right.
So it'd be 117 out of 4,000 some households, most of which have 2 cars probably.
Wait, I think that has the total number of cars at the top, does it not?
Yeah, it's, what is it, 13,274, but that's a
More
whole.
than-
load.
That includes everything.
That's
That
commercial,
includes
campers,
commercial,
the whole
trucks,
shit.
and everything.
4?
Yeah.
I was gonna
Three?
say, I've
Well.
got more than 2.
Yeah. Well, we have 3.
I think everybody's third car should be
But
electric.
that's, I mean, you figure there's over 100 of them just floating around town.
Hilly
Yeah,
has it.
yeah.
You can get it from Hilly. Hilly has it, yep, that's where I got it from.
So this is definitely a good idea. We should be doing this. The only question I think really is the way that we do the charging for it. We don't have to do that tonight. We can figure that out. I can see arguments a lot of different ways for that.
Yeah, I'm not sure either way I'm gonna come down in the long run. I just think right now I don't have enough information to recommend one. And
Yeah, I like your idea of getting more information, more data, and making a decision about that. That certainly doesn't hurt us too much financially. But I think we need to make a decision to go ahead with the site and permit the site.
Is Avenue aware that this is being kicked around? Not that they own it, but I mean, it is in their backyard.
They probably would be happy to, so have you guys talked to Avenue by any chance, or?
I think he works the night that we have select board meetings probably, so he may not know about it.
If after the document with Eversource is signed, the next thing you guys will see, or the town engineer would see, is a development plan. So they'll show you a really detailed development document, so that there will be a whole nother step that you'll get to look at to be sure exactly what's going in there.
Yeah, we saw some pretty detailed plans already, but,
I think.
So we own that entire parking lot. So Avenue, when they
It's
built
town.
that, they said they would want rights to X number of spots, but it's not like.
No, we allow all of the downtown businesses to count the Janes Avenue parking lot
Oh,
as
good.
part of their parking
Okay,
requirements.
yeah, cool.
Your view on this?
No, I think it's definitely the right thing. We've gone back and forth on the payment, but we don't have to decide that tonight, but I think in the spirit of what the state's trying to get us to in terms of electric cars, and I think Medfield's certainly going to be a green town, so I think this is the right,
Yep.
I've got no issue with it.
I think I have the
It's-
same.
it's the future. It's the way we're gonna go. We're all gonna have electric cars eventually.
turn their
'Cause
diesel
No one's gonna make a gas
I'm not
motor in a
I'm
while.
not convinced that this technology will prove to be the future.
Well, it might be
long-term answer,
hydrogen,
but
who knows?
But that's a philosophical observation. That's not a comment on whether we should have
I think at
charging
the moment-
stations right now. I think there's some logistical issues that will there will be something that will eclipse it. My best guess would be fuel cells, but that's long-term philosophy. I think
I'll talk with you all day long if you want.
yeah, I think the three of us are on board with the idea of doing this.
Yes.
Speaking personally, I thought you picked the right spot. I think it's appropriate to start with 2 parking spaces. I like the idea that there's a stub, so if, we learn something, we have the ability to at least put 2 more in there. If there's this overwhelming, clear indication that that's the best thing we can do to meet the needs of the town and the people that are here. My biggest concern was that whatever it is we do by way of a charger, it be a charger that's capable of handling all that charging. I agree, as long as that's all gonna happen, so that when we do get to the actual decision around charging, we don't hear anything about hardware that's gonna restrict our ability to fully do it. I think that's great. I think it's a great it's not costing the town anything to do it other than 2 parking spaces. And I think it's appropriate we can have some further discussions around what the data is we do want to get, but for me personally, I think you want the real kind of ground truth economic data, but that's something that I'm comfortable that's, as long as the stuff we're putting in has the capability to support all the options, I think we're good to go.
It would be an interesting to do the pricing. What would be a legitimate price? It's not always straightforward how much electricity costs.
Break even would be fine with me. I mean, you get into philosophy when you have a town subsidizing fuel for certain people's cars because they have the right kind of cars, and I basically don't want to go there. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. I think it's potentially regressive if you do it that way, but I'm also not trying to put the town in car fueling business. I'd rather just get ground truth on.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, in the long run, the town probably doesn't want to be selling power, but in the short run, it might be the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, you have parking meters that raise money. If we think it's a revenue opportunity for the town, I'd wait till we have 20 spots, before.
In the long run, you may end up just renting it out. I mean, like a lot of assets like this, companies will be able to pay the town some pilot program, some payment in lieu of taxes, something small, but might work.
But I think I'm good. I think we're all three.
I would move to approve the Eversource electric vehicle charger site host agreement and the sites that were set forth in in the materials that have been circulated for our prior meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Done.
Mr. Chair, Penny is in the audience, and she did raise her hand. I don't know if you want to give her the opportunity.
Absolutely, sure. Do we have to, let her talk first. I was saying, do we have to take that vote back? But no.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank Jim, Fred, Susan for a great presentation. Eversource is thrilled to put these charging units in. As both part of Eversource and as an EV owner, I encourage the town to consider further discussion about the fee. I think that's a very appropriate discussion, and I think as we see fuel prices increase, it's going to be important to be thoughtful about that. But thrilled to see that you are approving it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you, Penny.
All right.
All right, we're good.
Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. And Fred, the Energy Committee's report for the town meeting, I actually want to compliment the Energy Committee. It was the right length for a town meeting. It was 1 page. I did read it. I've already gone through the annual report, so I already understood there were some big dollars that the Energy Committee's been saving for the town. Hadn't seen the 8 million and hadn't heard the 9.2 until tonight, but I thought it was well written. I thought it hit some good points. I thought the things that you emphasized were right on the mark for what the town should understand about what the Energy Committee's doing. So whoever wrote that, my compliments to whoever it was that put that together. They did a nice job.
I know you two are scheduled to give input to time capital. Looking forward to that.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Great,
thanks.
thank you.
Okay. All right. We're past item 3. Only 19, yeah, that's all right. So item 4 was just, I think, a general discussion about the town meeting. Anything in particular?
No, I think actually we were putting together a Plan B I guess, Plan C if we did not get quorum
Right.
last night. So I was anticipating we would have to take some action. I do want to take the opportunity. I had a couple people reach out this morning asking me when the appointments to the school building committee would begin. And I just want to remind everybody, I talked to Marianne Benaldi, our town clerk. The bylaw will be sent within the next week to the Attorney General's office, and they can take anywhere from 30 to 90 days. So last year, just as an example, when we sent them our bylaws, we sent them on May 24th, and we heard back with an approval from the Attorney General on August 22nd. So there is a time frame. They can also request an extension if they have not reviewed that. Obviously, they have multiple towns to review. They can request an extension for 30 to 60 days. We did have that happen on one of our bylaws last fall, and we did finally hear from them back in November. So just want to let everybody know there is a time frame on that.
Comments?
And if, Chris, if people are interested in serving on that school building committee, they should still get their names in sooner than later?
Yeah, we'll post on the website like we do for all our boards and committees, but just to give you a heads up, there is a time lag on there.
So if I can, I'd like to get a clean copy of the actual bylaw. I just didn't grab that particular handout.
Yes, we'll have, Marion can supply you with everything that she'll send to the
Yeah.
Attorney General's office.
A couple things. One part of the reason I want to look at that is I want to be sure that given that we've changed the bylaw, I want to take a look at the upfront part that announces that the project needs to be done. I understand that we already submitted an SOI, we've demonstrated the need to replace it. I'll tell you what I would like, but I don't know that I have any particular right to demand it, is I would like a statement of what this project will be. And in particular, what I'm looking for is this, it's not a detailed statement, it's an upfront statement of the concept for this project. What I want to know is, we already know that one project failed. So by the standard of, is it a viable project, I will say last year's project was not viable. So I would like to know what this new conceived project is that makes it different, that would cause us to consider it to possibly be viable. At that point, I think is when, this is why I haven't read the whole, I think at that point is when the Board of Selectmen basically kind of raise their hands and say to the school committee and the moderator, we all are gonna figure out how to form a school building committee. I don't see why we would need to hold up on doing that. We'd have to hold up before that committee could come into existence, but I see no reason why we would have to hold up doing that to wait to get approval. I think we could actually begin the process of forming that committee. It can't come into effect until we get approval from the state.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than say we have to wait 30 to 90 days, and then if the state approves it, then we'll start the process of trying to do this. I'm saying, if we can get that statement of how this project will be different, so we can make the determination of viability, given the last concept was not viable, then I think we could begin the process of forming that committee and just keep them in the barn until the rancher says the field's open.
Can I ask, who are you anticipating will prepare that statement of project?
I'm assuming it's coming from the school committee. It's
Okay.
that's the department.
I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah, and I'm talking, if I'm talking through my hat here by asking for something I have no right to ask of the school committee by what the bylaw asks for, then I'll simply make it a plea. But if that's actually part of the revised bylaw, that's the trigger event that gets us to actually initiate the creation of a building committee. And
Right.
so let's go by the bylaw. And we have 30 to 90 days to digest all that and decide where to go, so.
No, we should certainly be doing it in parallel. I mean, to wait
Yeah,
until we get
why
the green
wait?
light is crazy.
We'll probably lose the summer as it is, but
Right.
at least if we can get this figured out, then that building committee can either do stuff or not do stuff, and at the very least, when they get back from wherever they are in the summer, then at the beginning of September, they get started. However that works is up to the building committee.
Completely agree.
I guess I'm wondering whether the schools or anybody else is going to undertake an analysis of why it wasn't successful. I mean, we've had these people that have suggested that they could run an analysis, an after action analysis sort of thing to tell us and get us the information But I'm wondering if the schools are thinking about doing anything of that sort to try to plot the way forward by figuring out the details of what happened in the past.
But they can do that if they want. Personally, I wouldn't feel it was necessary. I think I know why this failed, but it's not my job to figure that out. It's their job to figure it out. They did talk about wanting to do some sort of a study. No problem. If that's what they need to do before they can figure it out, and they're free to do that. It's not a problem. I don't think they'll find one reason. I think they'll find multiple reasons.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I think that we have a lot of residents that
and
don't want to
I-
pay more taxes.
Yeah, and I think, well, that's one reason, but that's not the only one. And
No,
and
no,
I
but
actually think.
For me, I think that's the biggest one.
You know me, you know my bias. I want to agree with you, Pete, and I think that's true, but there were some I've heard some people that have had strong opinions about other things.
Oh,
that
absolutely,
weren't worried about.
absolutely.
I think you're right.
It was a constellation of things, yes.
But my point is, we should be looking at a school project, which in some way, shape, or form, people would understand how this project is different from the last project, and the
Well,
last project failed.
Right, that's why I'm bringing it up, because that's how you have to figure out why the last one really failed, if you
Yeah,
want to make the changes,
if-
maybe.
If that's helpful, they should do that. I'm more concerned that we actually take the time to think out of the box before we simply try to figure out how to put the shoes that didn't fit in the first box, the same shoes into another box. And that's my worry. That we won't, looking backward too hard will get us into backward thinking, and I'm worried people get locked into an old concept and just trying to figure out what did we get wrong versus let's really think about what we need. So it's not yours or my responsibility to do that. So we're opining about what the steps forward would be.
Well, yeah, yes, I mean, I regard myself here as to help in the process, but not to, I think the schools need to be leading on this, so.
All right, right.
We have
Sure. Chris?
Response, this is probably just a question for Mark, just bylaw 101 with the AG's office. If they were to find a word or sentence in the bylaw that they didn't agree with, and it needed to be striked, or if some change needed to be made, does that happen automatically, or do we need to revote it what's the process if they find something wrong? Small, nothing major.
Did you hear that, Mark?
Did you hear that question, Mark?
I think I did it. There's no quick answer. It's not necessarily an all or nothing arrangement. They can, if they find something fundamentally flawed with it, they strike it. If it's a minor point, sometimes they will, and it can be, the bylaw can function with that omitted. They may approve the bylaw with certain exceptions. I don't really have what.
The other thing I had talked with Scott about, although I don't think this would work because we wouldn't get the feedback in time, there are some words, at least as my reading of the bylaw, that they're not words that I think challenge the fundamental intent of the bylaw, but the literal words are saying something that isn't exactly what I think the intent of the bylaw is. So they're editorial changes that are just literally the way the words in the bylaw are. I talked to Scott about that prior to the town meeting, because I said, well, if you have those kinds of things, how do you handle it? And one thing that he said we could do is to have an article at the special town meeting in June to process what you'd effectively see as administrative corrections to the bylaw as written. The problem is the AG's office probably won't get back to us in time for us to deal with it that way. But if there's things that, I guess it would be up to the bylaw review committee to figure them out. But if there are editorial changes that we would want to make, then that would screw up what we submit to the AG's office, though, wouldn't it? Bad idea.
That's That's not the
in front of
standard
them.
that the AG applies. The AG is looking to see whether it's within your home rule authority to enact a regulation. Namely, do you have that authority? And secondarily, does it conflict with any federal or state statutes or regulations which take precedence? So, and they will generally give, if it's in a gray area, they'll give you the benefit of the doubt, and there may be some cautionary remarks that go on for pages, but they'll tend to give you the benefit of the doubt.
For what it's worth, the attorney that sat next to me last night,
Yep.
when it was done, and I said, is there anything in here? Because we were talking about the AG, and he said, I've read through this, and I'll just give you mine. He's like, there's nothing in here that should raise a red flag.
Okay, okay. Anyway, I think there's a value to moving ahead on the assumption that the bylaw will be accepted, but recognizing that the building committee wouldn't be able to officially, I don't think the building committee would be able to spend any of the money that's been allocated until the bylaw is officially reviewed. But that doesn't mean that the building committee couldn't get organized and pulled together. And the only curveball there would be if the AG said this is a totally unacceptable bylaw, it's just not gonna, you can't fix it, throw it out, in which case we'd have to fall back to the original bylaw, and then we'd probably have to reconfigure the building committee to a degree to bring that building committee into conformance with the original bylaw. But I mean, I think that's a 25% course correction, not a 85% course correction. Anyway, I'm just trying not to waste another 6 months.
Right.
Just simply getting, the next person up to home plate to batter up. Okay. Assuming that the school committee would also like to not take another 6 months. They're driving this, but trying to stay out of the way. Okay, so no action. We're good?
Nope, just discussion.
Okay. All right. Item, we already we'll run ahead. We can skip over item 5. Item 6, request from the Medfield Cultural Alliance to sign a letter of support for their application to the Mass Development Underutilized Properties Program.
And you authored this, right? Did I see?
I don't think I didn't author it. I think I have to sign it, and the only comment I had was, ordinarily when I sign an official letter, I'd use my full name, not just Gus.
We can change that.
So I would change
Jean,
that.
Jean is here if you want to speak to her, unless you're all set with it.
We only want to speak to Jean if she wants to speak to us.
Jean, we were out really late last night, so we'd like to move on.
I assume we have unified support for signing this letter.
Yes.
Yes. And we will change the name on it.
So if you want to thank us profusely or something, Jean will let you come on.
Jean said move on.
Move on, okay, all right. Do we have to officially, I think we have to officially vote that.
You do have to vote.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, okay. So Jean, we will sign, or I'll sign the letter. I think I'm the only signature that needs there. Item 7, vote to accept the resignation of Heidi Graf from the Council on Aging.
Move to accept it with regrets.
Second, with regrets.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Okay, that passes. Number 8, vote to allow car wash fundraisers on Sundays to allow for rescheduling of canceled fundraising events due to the current water restrictions.
So we were fully booked for our May and June car washes on Saturdays, and then we had to cancel them all starting this Saturday because of well 6. So the current policy that we have on car washes that we passed last year was to only allow them on Saturdays. I would like to ask that they be done on Saturdays and Sundays so we can take this group we're rescheduling and move them into Sunday dates.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that's done. Item 9, vote to sign letter of engagement with attorney Drew Hoyt to provide environmental legal services for the Medfield State Hospital. Comments?
So, I noticed in his document that he talks about his services. Is there like a list of environmental activities that we have as a priority that would be part of his charter?
Right now, he would be providing staffing to the PIP group that we have.
Okay.
Public Involvement Plan, and any issues with the laundry parcel that we have.
Okay.
We also will probably use Drew, or Attorney Hoyt, to help us really overlook maintenance as
Okay,
well.
I just didn't know,
Yeah.
having done contracts in my previous life,
Mhm.
we used to have to list certain things out, so I couldn't see anything. That was like, okay, should anything be clarified as to what are his priorities?
No, we, the contract that we had with Attorney Solfa was just on an as-needed basis
Oh,
on the
okay.
hourly, as we needed for environmental issues. As Bill knows with the state hospital, you never know what's gonna pop up.
I've also, Peg had a couple of items on the due diligence list for the hospital, so you may want to have.
They've already been sent over, yep, all set.
Okay.
Yep.
That's Pete.
I would vote to sign the letter of engagement with Attorney Drew Hoyt to provide environmental legal services for the Medfield State Hospital.
Before you second that, I did have one question. So first off, just a comment. This was for a lawyer's contract. This was refreshingly simple. I was surprised to see that. But then, because it was so simple, I had one quick question on the part. He talked about expenses. Ordinarily, if we write a contract, we'll say that expenses will be passed on at cost. Do you know, is there a markup or anything on that?
I don't know, I can ask him though.
Okay. I would
Yep.
just, that's, I wouldn't hold up the approval on that, but I'd kind of like that clarified, that
Sure.
it didn't actually say it was just expenses are passed through at cost, which was what I'd expect it would be, but, okay.
I'll talk to him tomorrow.
Okay, all right. So you made the motion?
I did.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye, that passes.
I think that may not be ethical for attorneys to mark up service costs like that.
Could make a case it's never ethical, but it's, you don't have to be an attorney, but it just caught my
Well, I know
attention
that,
because it didn't
you know,
specifically
in
say
the
it.
trades, they do that, so that if the electrician goes to the supply store, they get a different price than I do when I go to the
Yeah,
supply
yeah,
store, and
yeah.
attorneys don't do that.
Yep. Item 10, vote to award bid to Comcast Cable Communications Management LLC for a lease of land located at 55 North Meadows Road and lease agreement renewal to existing lease. So that is a 5-year lease at $38,000 a year and a 5-year extension at $44,000, if I recall, right, Nick?
Correct.
Okay.
Leasing them our land, right?
Yes, where they currently are, where their
Yeah.
facility is.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Yep.
All right, so when I read that, what I found interesting is that there's no price increase year over year, that it's 5 and then it's another 5. Yet, okay, so if I was sitting at home, like I used to watch these selectmen meetings, I'd be wondering, why wouldn't we at least, like every one of us who's on Comcast sees an increase every year. So why wouldn't we as a town, if we're leasing something out, give a increase? And even if it was to mirror what the average increase for mid-level service with Comcast is to the residents of Medfield, if it's like, I know what my Comcast bill has done in the last couple of years. I bet you in the last 3 years, it's probably gone up $60, if not $80, and I haven't really done anything other than wake up and welcome a new day. So I'm just curious as to why we do that, just flat year over year over year when we're not, so they've got a fixed cost, but myself as a consumer, I don't have a fixed cost. Just I'm just asking.
When we developed RFP, I had consulted with Dave Maxon, who helps us with all of our wireless stuff, and he looked at some of the numbers and said this would be about where he would anticipate the market would end up. And that's what we set the minimum bids as. And what we put in the RFP that we can negotiate the bid price if we so feel we want to do that. So I'll defer to the board in that sense. So the first year, the minimum bid was 38,000. So the first year will have to be 38. The 6th year will have to be a minimum of 44. But there's certainly wiggle room within that to go above those numbers. If they agree, of course. And we only had the one bid, so.
Yeah.
But I don't think they want to dismantle their equipment, so.
I'm just curious. I just see, I mean, like
we
literally,
can-
as a consumer, you never get, 5 years, you're nowhere close to what you, so I'm just wondering why we're doing that.
We can go back and negotiate further.
Just
That's,
food for thought for you guys.
Complain every year when they do their rate increases.
Well, you did raise an interesting thought, that you'd have a contract that said, well, our rent goes up by the percentage by which your rates to Comcast customers in Medfield goes up. That's an interesting twist, but, Pete?
I would move to award the bid to Comcast Cable Communications LLC for a lease of the land located at 55 North Meadows Road and a lease agreement, all as renewal to the existing lease, all as set forth in the in the materials for the meeting.
So I take it from your standpoint, you're okay with the 5-year
Well, it's
fixed?
it's our RFP, so they're giving us what we asked for, and we have no
I
other
think I
bidders.
think what Nick said is that the only thing, in our RFP is we committed to the minimum price for the first year. So what I think we're saying, I think what's being said here is, well, you could actually say, no, we want you to go back and we want you to negotiate annual increases. Now, if 5 years out, it's 44,000, then the annual increase is about $1,000 a year that we'd be negotiating 38,000, 39, 40, 41, 42, plus, you know, then 44, presumably up to 40, whatever.
I have no problem with, if there are increases. It's a question of whether Nick wants to undergo the process of negotiating something different. I mean, they're giving us.
I can just blame you, so that's easy. That
We just throw you guys under the bus, don't worry about that.
I just find it odd, as a company that never has a flat rate.
So the real question here is, do we think we need to help Nick build his negotiation skills, or do we already think he's pretty good? Because we could just, but my own view, I think it's a valid point. I think it's a better point for somebody in Nick's position to go into a negotiation rather than having gotten to this point in a contract and then have the question come up. So I would be inclined to just go with the 5 years straight and the 5-year acceleration in the interest. This is not if it was a $500,000 contract, it would be a little different.
I just threw it out there for food for thought, like I just found it odd.
Yeah, well, you're asking a great question, and it's probably money that we left on the table, and 10 years from now, Nick, you need to remember this.
So what I will say, that one thing we did look at is, you know, if we felt a fair price was $38,000 for year one, so okay, let's go up 2% a year from year one. That's, I think, over the 10 years is about $415,000. This over the 10 years is $410,000. So certainly, if the percent increase was greater starting in year one, you'd go up to 2.5%. That'd probably be about a $15,000 a year swing. But when we were looking at it that way, and I think our wireless leases are at 2.5% escalation, so it's all in the same rough ballpark. But I'm happy to go back to Comcast. I don't have any issues doing so, but I'll defer to the board's judgment on that. So
Nick's not happy about his cable bill either, so.
Well, this is one I think your point's valid. I think we should keep it in mind when we do these negotiations, but I wouldn't necessarily.
And the current lease is expiring in May at $25,000 a year, so it did go.
It was a sizable jump.
A pretty good jump.
Yeah. I had one question. It's not really, it's just a confirmation question. Paragraph 10, indemnification. Comcast agrees to indemnify, hold harmless, and defend. I always look at the indemnification paragraphs. It's one of the magic words for contracts for me. It says, that was the second part of the property, accepting only that occasioned by direct or gross thing. Provided that this provision shall not apply to the extent that coverage is afforded by either Comcast's or town's public liability insurance carrier, that part I got, and provided further that town and Comcast shall each instruct their respective insurers to waive any right of recovery by way of subrogation arising from an insurer's payment of a covered loss. Only because that was an action that the town had to take. My only question was, is that something that we actually, recognize we need to do, and it's something that we routinely do? Are we gonna, it says we're gonna do it, I just wanted to make sure that that one little detail is actually something that is gonna be done, so. Yes?
Sorry, I was looking to Mark, but
I was going to
yes.
say, I think this is a Mark Sorrell question.
I believe the language was in the original lease, which is carried forward.
We've already submitted this waiver of subrogation. We've had it in place for years.
I don't know, frankly, whether anybody on either side actually took the extra step of going to their insurer. But it's not unusual language. Insurers don't like it, obviously, because they're giving up subrogation rights. But it's not unusual to have this kind of language in commercial contracts and leases.
So I'm back to saying, so we say we're going to do it. Are we going to do it?
It would be on our, we would follow up with Maya to just inform them. And
Okay.
typically they check in on lease agreements that we have on an annual basis anyway.
Okay.
And I think you need to look at the context here. This is basically started out as a very small area. in the DPW yard that was allowed, Comcast was allowed to install a transmitter box of some sort, and it kind of grew over a period of time. But even now, it's a compact unit, transmittal unit of, it's not likely to give rise to liability claims.
Yeah, I'm not worried about the literal risk. I'm worried about the legal risk if we say in a contract we're gonna do something, and particularly if we're doing something that takes a right away from our insurance company. We have a contract that says we're gonna do it, and then we don't do it, and then, you know, by some act of God, something does happen where it becomes a dispute, then we're the ones left holding the bag. It just seems it's legal exposure that if it's in there at all, then we should do it. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay, all right. Pete made a motion.
I'll second it.
So just before you vote, sorry to interrupt. So this is with Comcast now for feedback and make sure they're in agreement with the lease terms. So I would say we'll bring it back to for your approval at the next meeting.
So we're
but
not-
it was just on your agenda for this
So we're
discussion.
not voting on it yet.
All right.
We're just, so that was feedback. Oh, so we could have him renegotiate.
Well, yeah.
This is just feedback.
You
This
could.
is-
Then procedurally, you need to withdraw the motion that's pending.
Motion.
Pete has withdrawn his motion. Is a member of the Board of Selectmen allowed to withdraw their own motion, or do we need someone else on the Board of Selectmen to allow that to happen? Do we have to vote on the withdrawal? Okay. All right. Hearing no objections, we will accept Selectman Peterson's withdrawal. So that's just no vote. Obviously, it'll punchy after the annual town meeting. Let's see.
We're never doing this again.
Okay, the transfer requests that were the late ad. Christine, do you?
This is at the end
Yes,
of
yes,
our,
I know. This is the appropriation transfers in the Board of Health and in our own Board of Selectmen budget. Town administrator budget, I should say.
Where is it? Appropriation, there they are. So we have two appropriation transfers, one from the Board of Health in the amount of, total transferred in, total requested transfer is $7,000 coming from Board of Health to transfer to medical services and supplies in the amount of $5,000 and transferred to office supplies in the amount of $2,000. That $7,000 is coming out of the salaries, Board of Health salaries,
Going into operations.
and going into operations. Thank you. We have a motion to approve that, or do we need to discuss it?
I'm
So
good.
moved.
Okay.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye. That one passes, and what I'm doing is I'm opening up these transfers live because I didn't actually open them up before. The second one is a transfer out of town administrator salaries of $5,000 going into contract services in the amount of $5,000, and you're $2,000 in the hole, it says here, I guess, but.
Yes, that's why we're transferring in. Yep.
So,
Or-
so
yes.
what, is there a particular contract or just contract services?
No, this
generally,
is to pay the recording clerk to do the minutes.
or- We have a motion.
So
Quickly.
moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Okay, that one passes. That's it, right? Just those two?
Just those two right now.
All right, that's great, right now.
There will be a few more before the end of the year.
Okay, got it. Okay, so those are approved. Times two.
And then we're gonna hold on number 12.
You got to
Okay.
hold on that one?
We'll hold that
Okay.
until,
Okay. Then we have a consent agenda. An observation I made as I was looking at the requests. I see we're using Civic Plus to request permissions from people. Thought it was kind of cool. I don't know how, and the reason I'm bringing it up is in case people are listening. I don't know, I didn't go on the website to see where to go to do that, to determine how intuitively obvious it is. But the fact that we have online permission requests is probably going to make things easier for people they want to have block parties
Much easier.
and things like that. So there's, the items on the consent agenda, one is a block party request from Charles Intravia for 29 to 31 Kenny Road from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. on May 21st. The second, I didn't see it in the request thing, but I'll take it as a given that it's true. Block party request from Kristen Storer for between 39 and 41 Rocky Lane on May 21st from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. A Charles River Valley trustees request for one-day beer and wine permit for Friday, May 13th and Saturday, May 14th at Rocky Woods from 6 to 10 p.m. And that's for 2 scary movie nights. It looked like they really did have scary movies.
3D glasses to boot.
3D glasses, and they're trying to bundle that with people who want to actually then go out and camp in the woods that night, which is kind of cool. And then the next one, I did not actually see a request on this one either, but Medfield Together and Cultural Alliance of Medfield requests yard signs and sandwich boards on Main/North and South/Route 27 for the 2 weeks prior, September 24th to October 8th, to the Culture Fest at Bell Forge, scheduled for October 8th. And then the final one that we need to vote on, the Gazebo Players of Medfield request permission to post signs at the usual locations between July 11th and July 24th to advertise their performances of A Midsummer Night's Dream, including July 23rd and July 24th at the Medfield State Hospital. So I think the sign will show all of the performances that they have planned, including the ones at Bird Park, and they were doing it. There was another cool place they were going. I forget, it was Dover. It was,
The Heritage?
Yeah, they've got some
no,
really
Heritage. I knew it was a cool
really
place.
interesting
Yeah.
places.
Yeah, so at Heritage, so they'll have them all listed, but these are the two. So it's July 23rd and 24th. They'll be doing it at the on the Medfield State Hospital grounds.
Cool.
So are there any questions about the consent calendar items?
All good.
I would move the consent agenda.
Okay. Recognizing that we've already approved the Hinckley Helpers request.
Yep. Second?
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, good. So that's approved. And meeting minutes. I wound up working from both directions just because of the way Brittany put these in. So the April 5th, 2022 is, I think, the first meeting minutes that you've actually been able to comment on.
Yes.
Are you prepared for the April 5th? That's
Yes.
the last one, yes.
Yep.
You got them all done again?
I'm up to
dog.
date.
You're such a dog. I'm not all done yet, but I've got some done. So April 5th, can we get a motion to approve that one with all three of us?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Yes.
Aye. Okay, so that one is good. I had some minor revisions there in there, but they're not meaningful. March 1st still isn't where it needs to be. That's the one that was the discussion of the 5
yep.
intersections.
Brittany's working on that one.
Okay, so that's the only, I've made corrections on the whole thing, and I think, Pete, you already have as well. The biggest things, just, first off, I would suggest the discussion should follow the sequence of the intersections, because we talked about all 5. And just, Pete, you can refresh my memory if my memory is bad, but I came out of that discussion thinking that the Board of Selectmen had expressed support for the Bridge Street Route 109. That was the number 1 redo, which is even more important now in light of what's happened in the past week. And I also thought we were supportive of the Dale Street, West Mill Street realignment. Those two, I thought, met with broad support just as they were proposed.
Yeah, that's my recollection. Which of the ones at Dale and West Mill did we approve?
The less complicated one.
Okay.
I don't know that we carried it that far, but
That's not the one that pushes it out.
it's
is
not
it?
the one that pushes it out. It was just the one. I would suggest that probably that's up to DPW to give us their best advice on that. That's
Yes.
we were just looking at a diagram.
Yeah.
I don't know that I made an intelligent choice between the two. I just thought the other one was a little more complicated.
And on Harding and West Street?
Harding and West, they have to come back, I think, with both a more, we'd need to have a specific idea. I think the resistance on that was turning Harding into a T to allow West to be continuous was not something that many of us
The
that
sense
live up
was
in
that
end of the
Harding
woods
should be
really
the
thought it was
Yeah, they
great.
should do that.
Harding should be the through street.
Right, and then I think we were receptive to the idea of a rotary, if that was the right answer, but I don't think we were necessarily rolling out some other reconfiguration.
Yeah, I
so-
like the rotary. I mean,
Yeah.
somebody raised the issue of having to do takings, but I know that I saw some state documents about rotaries, and it looked to me like you could get them in pretty small
yeah, I
tight
think that-
places, so.
I thought the takings had more to
Roundabouts,
do with
I
the
think.
west
The West Mill.
Mill,
West Mill,
or West Street. If you wanted to bend it down to be a perpendicular intersection, then you'd have to possibly take.
No, they were talking about takings at
On that one too?
Harding and West, no,
I
north
think-
and west.
I think
North
that,
and
yeah, I think
Hospital.
you're right. It came up originally
Harding.
because they were showing like a full-blown rotary. And then when we brought up the idea of the kind of rotary that you see in Franklin Center or something like that, it's like that's probably, so at any rate, I don't think we had a plan for that any of us jumped on board with. So we didn't think those were ready for prime time.
Yeah, no, we didn't
And then,
pick one
and
there.
then the South 27 intersection, that's probably also something that's not figured out, but that's
No.
always been an important intersection, so that should be reflected in the minutes. So that was the thing that pushed that over the edge. And then Pete, being the overachiever in our group tonight, is ready for everything, but as far as the old meeting minutes go, I'm only ready for the first four, May 26, 2020, December 22nd, 2020, and I want to come back to that one, March 2nd, 2021, and March 30th, 2021. I had minor edits on that, but again, insignificant. The only thing on the December 22nd, 2020 is at the very end, there was a question at the end of the minutes that we got that talked about certain reference documents that hadn't been added in. So I don't have a problem with approving the minutes as they were written, but that one still apparently had some work to do to attach the
To add the
reference
attachments.
documents.
We can do that.
I would move to approve those sets of minutes then.
Okay, and, second?
Other than the
I'll
fifth,
second,
but-
I'll
yeah.
second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, and one abstention for the first four. So the list is shorter, it's just not gone yet.
What's the timing when we'll see the minutes to review for the last couple of meetings? Any idea?
The last couple of meetings. We have received the two from the joint meeting with the school committee, and then the public hearing we'll be distributing shortly.
Okay.
And the recording clerk has been provided the two most recent meetings, so
Okay.
within a week or so.
So the list at least is shorter this week rather than getting longer.
I don't want to have one of those in the future. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah.
We all are.
I'm sure.
Okay, town administrator update.
I have nothing tonight, other than just thanking everybody for coming out to town meeting last night. It's always a pleasure to see everybody. I know we had take two, but that's okay. It's just always nice to see everybody there and exercising their right to vote, so it's nice to see.
And selectmen reports.
All right. So let's see, if I go back to, 420, was it 429? We had a chance to walk with Trinity, which was good. It was nice to put names and faces together. And then follow that up the next day with Cam Jam, which was fantastic. That all the Medfield bands have played, just seeing all the young families out, seeing the food truck, the bear truck. It just had just nice feel for Saturday afternoon, seeing old and young alike. Then May 2nd being the ATM dress rehearsal. Just got a chance to get used to that view from that side of the table. And then this past Friday night, the Medfield Foundation 20th anniversary was fantastic. Love meeting all the new faces, getting a chance to meet Kirsten and her husband Dwight was just what a phenomenal event they hosted. And MFI just is such an outstanding organization, and listening to Julie's mom talk, and that was awesome. And then the baseball softball parade, Rudy and I represented. We led the charge with I think their first and second grade softball girls had awesome energy. They literally chanted from the second we left the parking lot all the way into Metacomet. It was awesome. It was fun.
So before you go on, as a public mea culpa, and Kim Gargano, if you're out there, I have 3 baseball hats for the 3 of us that showed up on my doorstep on Saturday morning, and at first I thought that they were misdelivered. There were some kids in town that must be on a baseball team. I went back, as I was doing these meeting minutes, I said, yeah, we actually did recognize that the parade had gone from Mother's Day and had been the day before, and I just never, I think as it was in the consent calendar, I just kind of went over it and didn't ever bring it into my own calendar. So I totally screwed up in not knowing that was going on, and therefore my thanks to you for showing up and representing us as the one person, and Kimmy, I apologize for having fouled it up and not being there, along with everybody else that plays in youth baseball, maybe next year.
No, Sean McCarthy did a nice job, and he thanked us as he went through a list of all the people that helped support it, so it was a really nice afternoon. And then I didn't get a chance to attend the Lions event because I had something I was doing with my mom for Mother's Day, but I did win a raffle, so I was pretty psyched about that. And then last night being the ATM, happy to see everyone out. I thought it was good dialogue, see a good mix of ages, so all good.
The Energy Committee met, and the TOMCAP, Town of Medfield Climate Action Plan Work Group for the Energy Committee keeps meeting weekly, and so that I've had a couple of those meetings. Again, the Medfield Foundation celebration of the 20 years and the Trinity Site Walk. That's it.
And much of what Eileen did, I also did, except for that one parade on Saturday.
I had that parade on Sunday myself. I never got into the right spot on my calendar.
Well, that's where it started, when we weren't thinking about the fact it was Mother's Day.
You were busting my chops.
The only additional thing that I can point out, I have is on Wednesday, May 4th, Jake Auchincloss had a reception, not a reception, he had a kind of meet and greet in Needham. It was kind of interesting. It was at the French Press Bakery right there in the center of Needham, which I'd never stopped at before, but if you want good croissants, they have really good croissants there. It was sort of drizzly at the very start. It's just a little small, we weren't sitting down, we were out on the sidewalk.
Oh, cool.
And there was a pretty good turnout. He gave a talk about some of the things going on in DC that he was working on. It was probably a little more of a social, it wasn't a formal political event in the sense that people were speechifying. It was more talking to different people. But it was, he as a congressman, I think, has been working hard to reach out into the community in a more noticeable way for a Washington-based congressman than I've seen in a while. So it was nice to meet him, and that was kind of fun, and they have good croissants. And I think that's all. Yeah, I just want to, I have to give kudos to Pete here. The event, the Medfield Foundation event on Friday night was just a first-class affair, and both my wife and I enjoyed it. And part of it, I realized we were walking away, quite aside from the fact that it was just a very nice affair, but it was actually a real pleasure to be somewhere, to see as many people as we know in Medfield, who all were in one place in a social context. And certainly, Pete, your long-standing service to Medfield Foundation, the fact that this is the 20th anniversary and the comments about where the foundation has come, recognizing that you were involved with the foundation from when it wasn't a sizable event that sent millions of dollars away. I think your service in that regard has been constant, and it's an organization here at Medfield that, as you could see as we started this meeting, it's an important organization. So thanks to you.
It started 21 years ago as a gleam in the eye of some people that had been to a couple dozen meetings about building 3 new schools over a course of a year, and coalesced around the idea that certain people in town would be willing to pay more than their property taxes to affect some changes in the town. And it has now raised over $3 million without any paid staff, and in its 21 years, and currently has about a $600,000 endowment in its legacy fund, which is the new effort that's being pushed at the moment to create $1 million endowment so that they can roll out $40,000, $50,000 a year in grants to the efforts in town.
Well, anyway, that was.
It's really starting to work well, so it was fun to see Kevin Hearn, who was the initial president of the Medfield Foundation, and tell him that after his 10 years of service, his wife Cindy Hearn was the legal counsel. She refused to be on the board of directors, but she did all the legal work, and to tell them that their idea had worked well.
Next meetings, Christine?
Our next meeting is the 24th.
Now, the Chipotle meeting coming up this week, do we need to be involved with that at all? No? Okay.
Unless you want to be.
Okay.
More than welcome to be. We are meeting May 24th, and then our next meeting will be, I believe it's June 7th.
7th.
And obviously, just a reminder to everybody again, May 18th is the Trinity Financial meeting at the Council on Aging and/or Zoom.
June 7th, yeah.
And
June
is there
7th works, yeah.
request for us to attend the morning session at all, or just the evening session? Because I believe they're presenting to the seniors earlier in the day, yes?
You talking about
Earlier
the MSH?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's focused on seniors during the day. Zoom, I think it's a Zoom broadcast at night. So if you were going to go to one, it would probably go to the evening one. But you could go to either one.
Go to
It
either
might,
one,
it actually
yeah.
might be
Absolutely.
interesting to go to the seniors to see what
Yeah,
they're
I
thinking
definitely wouldn't
about.
mind, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think my intent is try to do both, just
do
to get
both.
the perspective from.
Great. Yeah, you can do Zoom at night or
Right,
be in
right.
person.
And I'll be late getting there. This is a client day that doesn't end for me until 7 o'clock, so I should be there
I'll
by
be there,
7:30,
yep.
so, okay.
Okay.
That's it, I think. Oh, you know what? On the informational stuff, the very first one, Board of Appeals, was a notice of decision for Royal Pizza wanting to do business, and only because the form didn't tell me enough. It's like, well, they already are doing business.
Yeah,
Do you-
They're changing ownership.
They're changing ownership.
Oh, is that what that is? I was trying to figure out the same thing. I'm glad you
Yeah.
brought that up.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
it's changing
Nosh and Grog, I understood they
Same
want to keep their
notice.
outdoor stuff, but I didn't know why.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just realized it was just a notice of decision, not the actual decision. We
We can get you the full decision, but they're
Next
just
time.
changing ownership. And Dr. Hilly Passas just reminded me, I apologize, also the Tomcat meeting is the 19th as well.
Yep.
So I forgot
Okay.
to mention that on my list. So thank you, Hilly, for
Great.
listening this late.
Does anybody have anything else?
Oh, I think I'm good.
Move to go home.
Do I have a second?
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're going home.